Jessica Le Mazurier in the newsroom. It's only been 9 hours, but the new French president's already been rained on, seen his plane hit by lightning, and he hasn't even made it to Berlin. François Hollande, the new president of the French Republic, taking over from Nicolas Sarkozy after a 40 minutes closed-door meeting for the official handover of state secrets. There you see the two of them on the red carpet this morning. The first socialist head of state in 17 years, greeted with a mix of sun and, as you can see, showers throughout the day. Inauguration Day rites included paying respects at the tomb of the unknown soldier and a string of speeches in various locales, most notably to praise the 19th century politician Jules Ferry, who instituted free and secular public schooling in France, and to science greats Pierre and Marie Curie. Paris getting to know him now as President Hollande. Now it's the turn of the Germans. François Hollande expected in Berlin later, after his plane turned back and after that bolt of lightning. He's doing exactly as his predecessor did 5 years ago on his very first day in office. This time it's a newly elected socialist with momentum pushing growth, and an Angela Merkel coming off another big regional election loss over the weekend, but who's still personally very popular among Germans, and Germans who back her in her resistance to too much spending. Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the first day on the job for François Hollande, and who better to talk about the Franco-German couple than German journalist Ulrike Koltermann. Thank you for being with us. We also want to thank for being with us here in the studio Jérôme Gage. He's the president of the Paris area Essonne Regional Council. Thank you for being with us. And Jacques Millard, a member of parliament for the Conservative UMP party. Thank you for being with us. The France 24 debate, where you can always follow the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter. You can find us at François F24. We can begin, though in Berlin itself and join Christophe Robit. Christophe, first off, I know your beef is news, but what's the weather like where you are?
The weather is quite stormy. We thought the meeting would be stormy, but it's the weather that turns out to be stormy here in Berlin. As you said earlier, what was meant to be the baptism of fire of François Hollande turned out to be the baptism of lightning, really. Now, the French president, more seriously, should arrive here at the Chancellery. You can see it behind me. It's 7:10 here in Berlin, the same, I guess, in Paris. He should arrive shortly before 8 o'clock. So, yes, everything has been delayed here in Berlin. Merkel and Hollande have never seen each other before. It's very important to stress this because during the campaign, as you know, Hollande had requested to meet the Chancellor of Germany here in Berlin, but he never received an invitation. This because at the time she was, as you know, campaigning on behalf of the incumbent Nicolas Sarkozy. So this will be the first time both leaders, the leaders of Germany and France, the leaders of the two second largest economies of the Eurozone, will meet. And this is not only the weather which is stormy, the markets are as well, as you know, with political and economic chaos in Greece, the euro nosediving. These are very, very difficult times, of course, for a first meeting here in Berlin.
And we're all watching it. And to think, Christophe, that 5 years have passed, a new French president elected back then, the very same day, traveled to Berlin. Nicolas Sarkozy, greeted at the time by Merkel, fellow conservatives. Today, it's a socialist who was sworn in Paris. François Hollande on his way to Berlin. And Christophe, I imagine that you've been able to escape the clutch of spin doctors and tell us if there are any telltale signs of how this get acquainted session is going to go.
Well, Merkel said, I want to greet the new French president with open arms. I think it will be very interesting to look at the body language, particularly during the press conference. Angela Merkel is not a mercurial leader, as you know. She's not Nicolas Sarkozy. So what some tell you here is, in a way, it's not a problem he's a socialist because they have very similar characters and they will get on quite well. The problem, though, is what's on paper. When you look at the election, the program of the political program of François Hollande, and you compare it with the priorities of Berlin, you will see that they have very diverging views on how to handle the euro crisis. When Hollande says we need to invest money, we need stimulus in order to revive growth across Europe, Angela Merkel replies, no, you need to save money in order to restore the credibility of Europe, in order to attract investors. So that's really the problem. But as always in Europe, it will have to be about compromising. So this will really be the aim of both leaders, because they know the clock is ticking, time is playing against them, and a clash in the so-called Franco-German couple would have disastrous consequences on the markets and for the credibility of Europe. Nothing will be decided here tonight. This is about getting to know each other. There will be a crucial meeting in Brussels next week, a summit organized by, a dinner, I should say, organized by Herman Van Rompuy, where all leaders will talk about growth, but this is about laying the foundation of what will be the future of this new Franco-German couple in a very stormy weather.
All right. Thanks for the update on both the weather and the news there. Christophe Robit, our Europe editor in Berlin. Ulrike Kolderman, listening to what Christophe says, we're talking about such huge issues, jobs at stakes, lives at stakes. Personalities, though, do matter.
They do, absolutely. And we just have to compare when Sarkozy took over and he met Merkel for the first time. It was really a very awkward situation. She didn't like him physically. You could see in the body language, as he mentioned, that there was a sort of distance.
She didn't like the kissing thing.
No, not really. And like grabbing in the neck, it was not really her thing. But Hollande is different, and I think they have a lot in common. And it's very clear that they both have their domestic problems, and they know about that, but they are sober and they are very methodical, and they will look for a consensus, and I'm sure they will find a consensus.
All right, before we discuss the substance of what's going to come up later with Hollande and Merkel, let's first talk about François Hollande himself, because today, again, we got to know him in a new light as the new president of France. And first of all, for our viewers who aren't French, Jérôme Guedj, it's kind of strange, these inauguration ceremonies. You don't have a swearing in. Nicolas Sarkozy leaves before the new president is actually sworn in by the president of the Constitutional Council. It's a very different ceremony than what we're used to seeing in the Anglo-Saxon world, most notably in the US.
Honestly, you're right. And, I was this afternoon at Hôtel de Ville. I've shown the ceremony in Élysée. We are a republic, but I think that we keep on liking the monarchy. It looks like a republican monarchy, but it's part of the French history. We like, this kind of big ceremonials, but it's important for all of us. It was quite a long day with so many official and symbolical moments. Honestly, it has finished already. Now we are on the core of the problems. But I want to keep in memory that it was such a beautiful day for the country, for all that has supported François Hollande during this political campaign. So it was a big moment of the French history. But now we have to deal with the problems.
With the problems, and there was this sort of moment, Jacques Millard, where the new president, who's still the president-elect, arrives. The outgoing president, they go upstairs, nearly 40 minutes. They meet in secret. They're the only two in the room. At that point, it's sort of like time is a bit suspended.
Suspended? Well, it shows that the state is in a continuous momentum. Mm-hmm. And, I don't agree that French like the monarchy. What they like is a head of states. When Hollande says, I want to be a normal president, I'm sorry, a president is not normal. He is the president. And of course, he can behave in a simple, sober manner, I agree. But he is the head of states. And I always remember what once, the leader of the Communist Party driving in a very big car with a chauffeur, with, a cap. And
which country was this?
That was in France. And he was the first secretary. It was Duclos, and people said, well, for a communist, chauffeur, etc. And the other says, but I am the first secretary, and I want to be recognized as such, and my comrades won't like me to be an ordinary man. So I think that, in fact, when the French recognize the head of states, they recognize what? The status of France. That's all. So I think you said it's different. We don't take an oath. Okay. But the president of the Constitutional council declared him. And, you know, the oath is what? Is a vote. He's elected by the nation, is the president, full stop. And of course, afterwards, from now on, we will fight a bit together because we don't agree.
And in fact, after saluting all his predecessors by name, François Hollande at one point during his inauguration speech, taking a not so thinly veiled dig at Nicolas Sarkozy's management style.
I will determine priorities, but I will not decide everything for everybody, everywhere. In conformity with the Constitution, the government will decide on the nation's policies. Parliament's rights shall be respected. The judicial system will enjoy all of the guarantees of its independence. Power, at the head of the state, shall be exercised with dignity and simplicity.
Jérôme Guedj, was he saying that Nicolas Sarkozy didn't respect the Constitution? Was François Hollande there saying, in effect, that Nicolas Sarkozy did not respect the Constitution, that he concentrated too much power in his own hands?
No, you know, when he talked about the fact of being a normal president, is to re-endorse, you know, a kind of simplicity and dignity in the way of being president of the state. You know, in the next days, I'm sure that one of the first decisions will be to reduce, you know, the salary of the president of the Republic. It's very symbolical, but you know, it's like, you know, this morning, we saw the official car of the president that gets stopped at the red light. It's very small symbols, but the idea of it's not necessary of being a kind of arrogant president that wants to control everything, that wants to be involved in all decisions. It's a kind of change with what was the style of Nicolas Sarkozy, obviously.
Ulrika Kortmann, for those of us watching from abroad again, the reminder that France is still in campaign mode. Jacques Millard, here present, is running for re-election as Member of Parliament next month. And so that, did you feel as though a little bit there's an element of a campaign speech in what the inauguration speech of the president?
Absolutely. And also his criticizing Sarkozy is very symbolic. He wants to create a new style of government, and this is something he tells his voters. It's not important at that time to talk on the international level. He's still fighting for the next elections, and so he needs to convince his voters. He needs to distribute things, and Merkel knows it. So he has a little bit of freedom to make big promises, but probably not very long.
In other words, we won't know who the real François Hollande is till after the legislative elections?
Well, you see, I think that he can say, because this is two different ways to look at and to conduct the states. De Gaulle was on the main line, and he had a prime minister who conducted daily life. But he had 7 years. Now we are in a 5-year term, and it will be very difficult for Hollande to be only on the reserve and to leave Mr. Ayrault to do the daily life, because as the times will be rather tough, I'm pretty sure that the nation will ask the president to come first. That means to come in the front line. And I think that he has to be very careful not to say that, of course, as Article 21 of the Constitution, that the Prime Minister, the government is conducting the daily life, the policy of the French government, but in fact is elected. He has appointed someone who has not been elected yet. We are in a system in which the Prime Minister has to be responsible in front of the House, the National Assembly, as well as they're appointed by the President. So I think we have changed time. And the way he put things, I think this is an old-fashioned way, and it will not work. It doesn't mean that he will be daily on the back of Mr. Ayrault, but on very big issues, he will be forced to come in the front line.
All right, and the shaking everyone's hand in the rain, the refusal to wear the sash at the inauguration, the motorcade stopping to respect a red light. It's won over at least...
No, he did not respect. He wasn't yet the president. Afterwards, he's been going straight. Don't repeat history, Okay.
Well, at least it's won over one viewer. Isaac from Lagos in Nigeria says He looks like a cool guy. Congrats. Now, the first trip of the Hollande presidency is to Berlin. We all know that. But it wasn't the first measure. The first measure of his presidency was naming a prime minister. It happened mid-afternoon. Socialist Party boss Martine Aubry passed over in favor of the longtime leader of the Socialists in Parliament, Jean-Marc Ayrault. Jean-Marc Ayrault, who knows Parliament well, who will know, obviously, how to deal with lawmakers. But how important is the fact that he is a former German teacher and that he has these ties with Germany?
Obviously, it's a bonus. It's a plus. He knows well Germany. He likes Germany, and I'm sure in this specific period, it will be something not essential, but it will be important. The most important thing is the goals, is the proposals made by François Hollande. But the fact that Jean-Marc Ayrault is a former German teacher, he speaks German, he likes and he knows very well the country. I think it will be a kind of bonus in the Franco-German couple.
Jacques Millard, you know obviously Jean-Marc Ayrault well at the National Assembly.
Yes,
What's your take on the
man? I have respect. He's an experienced MP without any panache. He's not forthcoming. In fact, what is interesting is that he's been nominated, but who has not been nominated? Martin, and Ségolène. So he escaped the woman, So that's very important because he knows that those two are very difficult to manage.
Because they're women? Or
No, because they are.
I was afraid.
They are.
Yeah.
Martin Aubry, he knows pretty well, and Ségolène as well. So, it's quite interesting that he has been nominated someone who is an experienced MP, who knows how to circle the square in a party where there is no strong unity because, it goes apart. He will have to manage the Greens, hard, tough, and certainly also the extreme left. So he won't have, easy time ahead.
Ulrike Kollermann, I suspect that the German press will be happy with this.
Absolutely. There was immediate reaction. The websites of the big German newspapers immediately had their stories, run their profile of Jean-Marc Ayrault. And I think there was a bit of relief because if it was Martine Aubry, she has a last name as well, I think people would be afraid that would be a signal to the left wing. And Ayrault is not only important because he knows Germany, he supported Schröder at a campaign in 2005, he even went to Münster and went there to meet people. But the even stronger signal is that he is someone who's in the middle and who stands for economic sense. Okay, and when we come back, we'll be looking at the economic sense of it all. We are waiting the arrival of François Hollande in Berlin on this, his inauguration day.
In the new airport? Which one is it?
No, the new airport is not ready.